"I need a husband by tomorrow," she said. I replied, "Then you'll have to come and live at my place." She stepped out of the high desert dusk with dust in her hair and her coat buttoned wrong. I was alone at my way station on Red Willow Trail. One shed, one squealing hand pump, and cottonwoods that rattled whenever the wind changed. I had a wrench in my hand when she stopped at my fence and said, "I need a husband by tomorrow." The lantern hissed softly. I watched her close enough to catch the small things: a cracked thumbnail stained with plant dye, a satchel heavy with bottles, and eyes that held steady only because they had to. "My name's Jonah Pike," I said. "People don't come here unless they're lost." "Lost," she agreed, "and on a deadline." She swallowed once. "Eliza Crowley, Alderband. The county will challenge my claim at noon tomorrow unless I present a married household. If I fail, my uncle's syndicate takes the creek in the water rights." Alderband sat 2 ridges over. Chapel, schoolroom, a handful of families trying to make a valley behave. I'd hauled their supplies. I'd never spoken to Eliza. "Why me?" I asked. "You could marry any man in town." "Because my uncle already owns most of them." She set a folded notice on my bench, seal broken. The words were blunt: residence, witness, clerk's discretion. If I arrive with someone they can buy, I lose before I open my mouth. She looked around my yard: stacked wood, patched roof, tools hung where I could reach them in the dark. "You aren't theirs," she said. "You're close enough to testify you've seen my fences and the creek, and you're poor enough they'll underestimate you." I asked the question that mattered. "What's he really after? Just water?" Eliza's gaze slid to the horizon. "My father found a source on that land," she said. "Not ore, not treasure, something that can keep crops alive through the worst summers. If it's controlled, it can choke this valley one family at a time." That made my curiosity rise like heat. What kind of source turns relatives into wolves? I set my wrench down and made the only rule that felt clean. "If I sign my name to this," I said, "you don't vanish afterward. Folks will watch my porch. They'll count your steps." "I know," she said, and the strength in her voice came from effort. "I don't have anywhere else to stand." "Then you'll have to come and live at my place," I told her. Her shoulders lowered just a little. "I will," she said, like she'd been holding that word all day. That night, I showed her the spare room and the wash basin. She ran her fingers along the rough windowsill, nodding once, as if memorizing proof. When the door closed, the house didn't feel bigger. It felt less empty. We left before sunrise, wagon wheels whispering over hard ground. Eliza sat beside me, hands folded, listening to the leather creak. When we passed a dry wash, she pointed at the cracked mud and said, almost to herself, "This is what my uncle sells: thirst." At the courthouse, ink and old pine filled the hall. The clerk's eyes slid over me, measuring me. 2 men in clean vests waited near the door, pretending to read a notice. Eliza didn't look at them. She stepped forward like she'd rehearsed it. The judge spoke fast. We answered. We signed. A pen scratch that sounded too small to change a life. Outside, morning light warmed the dust. Eliza exhaled, long and silent. On the ride back, I asked, "What happens next?" "They try to prove it's false. They'll come to your door. They'll question you. They'll question me. They'll pull one thread until the whole thing unravels." She turned to me then, and the fear finally showed, only in her eyes. "If we fail, Jonah, they won't just take my land. They'll make you a lesson." A gust hit the wagon, sharp with sage. Behind us, a second set of wheels turned onto the trail, too steady, too close. I kept my gaze forward. "Then we'd better give them a life they can't pick apart," I said, and I wondered who my simple roof had just invited in. Eliza settled into my spare room like she was afraid the walls might change their minds. One nail for her coat,
one shelf for her bottles, and every morning, before the sun cleared the ridge, she was already up, boiling water, tying back her hair, turning my quiet kitchen into a place that smelled of mint. People began to linger at the doorway. They came for a tightened axle and left with a bandaged hand or a warm cup. Eliza didn't charm them. She simply helped, again and again, until my way station started to feel like a small haven. That's when Silas Crowley's men arrived, polite as paperwork. They asked Eliza questions at my pump, as if a woman lifting a bucket could be measured for truth. Eliza answered with practical details, where the floorboard squeaks, how the kettle whistles, which window sticks in a wind. The next day, my pump handle dropped with no resistance. Inside the casing, the leather seal was gone, removed cleanly. Eliza crouched beside me, eyes sharp. "If your station fails, you move," she said. "If you move, they claim I never lived here. This isn't about marriage. It's about making us disappear." That night, she unwrapped her father's notes from oilcloth. Rough maps, rock marks, and one word written again and again: spring. At first light, we rode to her creek parcel. The water ran thin but stubborn, and the grass near it was too green for a dry season. Eliza pressed her palm to the mud, listening like a doctor listens to a heartbeat. "This is what he protected," she said. Then she glanced toward my cottonwoods in the distance. "Your trees never died. Did you ever ask why?" I hadn't. I'd called it luck. In that moment, it felt like a thread connecting my station to her land, one hidden source feeding both. By evening, Alder Bend's people showed up without being asked. A new pump seal, spare bolts, a basket of biscuits still warm. They stayed in my yard until the stars came out, quiet and loyal. 2 days later, the county commissioner arrived to verify residency and improvements. Behind him rode Silas, smiling like he'd already written the ending. He walked my yard, pointing at every rough board. "A way station," he said, "not a home." The commissioner asked hard questions. Where were Eliza's belongings? Who could swear this wasn't a trick? Eliza stepped into the open light. "It began as necessity," she said. "I needed protection for my father's land. Jonah offered shelter without trying to own me. Since then, I have lived here, worked here, and I choose to stay." Silas leaned in, ready to turn that honesty into doubt. That was when Tom Barlow, the Alder Bend blacksmith, held up a telegraph slip. I ran a relay wire for travelers, and sometimes messages passed through my hands. This one had come in the night the pump failed. I'd copied it and kept it folded in my toolbox. Tom read it aloud, an order for a removed seal, payment promised, signed by Silas's foreman. No shouting, no fists, just a strip of paper changing the air. The commissioner read it twice, then told Silas to step away from the property, and the valley, gathered behind us, did the rest by simply standing there and not moving. By sundown, the commissioner stamped Eliza's claim valid and noted the interference. Silas rode out with his smile finally gone. Later, when the yard was quiet again, Eliza and I sat on the porch with 2 mugs of chicory. The pump squeaked steady, the cottonwoods whispered overhead. "Was it wrong," she asked, "that it started as a bargain?" I said, "It started as survival. What it becomes is choice." We capped the spring with stone, wrote fair water shares, and watched Alder Bend's fields hold green longer than anyone dared to expect. Eliza opened a proper clinic room at my station. I built another chair for the porch because one chair felt like an old life I didn't want back. On a cool evening, she slid her hand into mine. "Tomorrow," she said, smiling at the old deadline, "I won't need a husband for a paper. And I won't offer a roof out of fear, only out of love." Under the steady desert stars, the valley sounded different, like it finally believed it could heal.